Alpha.
Omega. Spellwork Mastery.
Bruce, we hear from Bruce today. Hey,
Fantastic.
Bruce, how are you, buddy? Most of my successes come through finding bargains instead of actual money after doing money generation spells.
Right.
Well, without reading all of it through yet, Bruce, that's really good because what that means is that you're open to things arriving from other means as well, like we talked about.
Right, because the universe hates a void.
Right.
You know, you dig a hole and the wind will try and fill it just as quickly as possible. You know, voids are not to be allowed in this world. And so when you create that, it immediately gets filled.
So this is the kind of thing that happens to Bruce.
Yes.
I find books at a different price, buying structure of barter instead of using money as, for instance, uploading other topic documents I have in my possession to download full PDF texts of books to clarify a subject's parameters in high or low magic.
Right.
You know, things like that.
Yes.
Interesting. So,
Very
yeah,
nice.
well, it's good to see that you've got other avenues arriving. Like Leslie is a master of thrift store magic, so you would not believe the things that come across our path in thrift stores.
Yes, it's really quite wonderful. They're like 3D printers. They really are. You know, you just think about what it is that you want, you cast the right spell, you figure out what the timing will be. See, and these are things that you will learn as you start casting spells more frequently. I know how long it takes one of my spells to fire off correctly.
You know, I want to mark that. Spells are like 3D printers. That's no. Spells and thrift stores are like 3D printers. That's a Leslie McQuaid original.
Yeah, it's true. But I mean, it's just amazing what you can find there. You never know what you're going to find at the thrift store, right?
Especially if you've been spellcasting before you go.
Right. Well, then you actually might know.
Have an idea what you're going to find. You just don't know when you're going to find it, but it will come across your path.
Right. And you know, to be fair, I don't always find my interesting things in thrift stores.
You know, that would be an interesting episode, thrift store spellcasting.
Right. Yeah, because it really, there's so many different ways that you can get the spell to fire off, but you get it to manifest at I always use a particular thrift store because I don't want to have to drive all the way across town and check 5 or 6 of them. Why not just make it go to the one I want? It's magic after all, right? So
let's see, we've got here, how do you use a wand in general spellcasting? I made myself one, cut it, dried it, and shaped it from red maple. But I don't know how to apply it for basic spells. Well, Kyle, I can't help you there. If you were asking me about how to use a wand for high magic, I've got lots of wands and lots of uses.
low magic wand. Okay, so this wand is keyed to a particular purpose, you see? And I'm sure many people have some ideas about what purpose this particular wand may be keyed to. So that when I pick up the wand, I'm picking up a pre-charged instrument. And you see, that is where wands in low magic and high magic are exactly the same.
Right.
Every wand is charged with the property you want to expel. Okay? So you are a battery, right? Now, when I put this in my hand, this acts as, I guess, a capacitor. I didn't take electrical engineering, so if I misuse the word, please correct me. But the idea is that the energy that I am pulling in and pushing through the wand gets modified, modulated, twisted, turned, bent, corrected, spiraled in order to do what I intend it to do by the function of the wand. And this helps because it reinforces the mental projection that I'm already using. So I have a double trigger, as it were. I have the trigger of the preformed spell in creating the wand, and then I have the mental trigger of using it. So it amplifies the power. And also, it focuses power. Now this one I have set to a wide gauge. This is my 8 gauge wand. I have a 20 gauge in the back. And this is because the the spell casting that I do with this particular wand is not fine-tuned. This is this is literally a shotgun wand. That's why it's so thick and chunky. I want to have a broad effect. I want it to splatter. Now, I do have some wands that have very fine, almost wire tips. And those are for very precise work, very precision work, when I know exactly what I'm doing when I go in with the spell.
Right.
But, and that's the night. Now, oh, you can have 100 different wands, each one keyed to a different purpose. And we do find that there are magicians, like I said before, who specialize in one type of casting or another.
Right.
Like my friend who only does water-based things.
Right.
Well, there are people who work primarily in wands.
Interesting.
Yes, so now that you know what to do with your wand, well...
Now I have a question for Kyle.
Okay.
Kyle, now why did she have that wand just sitting there like that? You know, get used to it. When you're around Leslie, you don't even question these things anymore. How is it that she knew to have that wand ready, anticipating your question before it came?
Well, now, to be fair, before I read the question, this is what I picked up.
Oh my goodness.
Because what I was going to do is I was going to show you how to whittle.
Oh, right.
To fabricate your own wand, you see. So I was...
Well, thank you, Kyle, for giving Leslie a lead into what she wanted to talk about anyway today.
Right, exactly.
Wonderful, great. Okay, so let's see about whittling wands.
Okay, whittling. I don't know how many of you have ever whittled before, but this was one of the very first things I was ever taught. My grandfather's oldest sister's husband taught me how to whittle. And what you want is you want a whittling knife. And there really are different types of knives for doing these sorts of things. And this old Henry is especially good for whittling, which is different from wood carving. Okay, wood carving is a specific thing. You've got chisels and hammers and drills and no, this is whittling. This is taking a pocket knife and creating a piece of folk art, and that's a specific thing. Now you see this Uncle Henry's got 3 specific blades. It's got one blade for carving fine patterns. It's got a blade for stripping off bark, and it has a depression for carving inside things, for hollowing, a hollowing knife. You hollow out boats and spoons, and you start beads with this one. So when you have the piece of wood that you want to whittle, of course you're going to start with taking off any of the bark. Now, all of the sticks around here are they're horrible. So we're going to use a paintbrush instead, which is wood. It is covered with something I don't want it to be covered with. It satisfies all the requirements. So you just lay the blade at about a 30 to 45 degree angle. And it's your option. You can either go away from you, right? Or, I know it's probably poor form, but I was always taught to carve towards myself. And what you do is you brace your thumb on the piece of wood like this, and then you're going to grip this way, and then you pull. And this pulls off chips. You see? And this is also good if you want to flatten the piece of wood. You know, perhaps you're in a hurry and you don't have time to fully carve your sigil. Well, what you'll do is you'll just come in and you'll chip off some of it and get it nice and flat here at the top. And then now that you have a flat surface, you can write on it. Now, suppose you do want to do something a little bit more elaborate. All right, well, I've kind of macked that up, so I think I just want to take off that end completely. And there's a technique for doing that. You want to take your thumb and your forefinger like this and roll all the way around so that you cut, and you can't really see it, but there's a very fine line there that's been cut. Now, go back with your other thumb, press just a little bit underneath that first cut that you made and push up. And when you do, a nice little chip pops right out. You go all the way around making those little chips, then you flip it over and you make the same chips in the other direction. And when you do, you get nice pieces that chip up, and that will create a divot all the way around. Once you've created that divot, you want to make it deeper. Come by, cut it a little bit. If it will cut off, it will. If not, it snaps right off, and you've corrected any mistakes that you've made.
Can you show that last part again for the lower camera too, because they weren't seeing it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Right.
Mm-hmm.
See? And you just go back and forth. Can you see that? Back and forth.
There you go.
See? And this is going to create the notch. Now, I've never tried to carve in the reflection of a camera before, so I'm sure this doesn't look very elegant.
You're right.
But it gives you the basic idea. And the reason why I do this is I want you to become very familiar with modifying and manipulating your tools. This one was made for me, so it was nice. I specified the number of layers and the colors and the way I wanted it turned, how long and all of that. When you're whittling one for yourself, you have much more freedom. You don't have to stick with just whatever your lathe or your lathe operator is willing to do for you.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not going to cut that many balls into it. That seems strange. Just take the regular handle, all right, lady? There's like 4 people behind you. Mm-hmm. So that is an introduction to whittling.
Interesting.
Yes, and you know, the nice thing about carving your own wands is that while you're doing the carving, even while you're just stripping off the bark,
Mm-hmm.
the action of stripping off the bark and thinking about how you're going to be using the wand serves to begin imparting it with a charge.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. Thank you, Leslie.
You're very welcome.
So what would be some examples where you might use whittling in spells?
Oh, I use whittling extensively. Every time I need to carve a sigil, let me show you how to carve a sigil. It's not that hard. You're going to use the sharper penknife end.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to use the same technique that you use to cut your notch up here at the top. So what I'll do is, let's make it easy on me today. We're going to carve this one. E-zag, right?
Right.
Right, E-zag. See, just the one straight line. Okay, I know there's more complicated runes. This shows you the technique.
Yeah, you could complicate. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so first you want to use this to carve in as deeply as you can the first line. So really, dig the tip of the knife in. The next cut you make here at the bottom, just a little cut like this, and then one at the top. Now this is to keep this letter from traveling. Now that's something that will happen to you if you're carving. When you're carving, because this is moving in line with the grain of the wood, unless you cut in stops, your knife will have a tendency to slide and make this letter as long as the entire paintbrush if you're not careful. So by cutting in these stops, you help prevent that for the next step. Now the next step is to switch blades, and this time you want your hollowing blade. There it is. And you can tell that it's a hollowing blade because you see the operative belly of the blade is higher than the tip. And that's so that you can drive this down in to the wood, which is exactly what we're going to do. So now what you want to do is you take the tip of this, and again, lying at about, this one we're going to take at about 60 degrees because we want a nice deep letter. So then you're going to cut in the same way. See how that pulls out a chip? Now you go again. You always work first one side, then the other when you're doing whittling.
Mm-hmm.
That keeps things symmetrical. So you make one slice in that direction, and you make the next slice in the other direction. See? See how that's beginning to pull up the little bit of wood? And then again, these breaks here keep it nice and short.
Keep it from going longer and slipping on you.
Right.
Interesting.
Mhm. So if I had a, this is something that at some point I'll put on a GoPro and take you
So
through
can
the
you
whole
tell us,
tutorial.
yeah, that would be great. Can you tell us something about perhaps folk magic involving whittling in Appalachia or something like
Oh,
that?
yes. Okay, so there's some really good ones. Um, it used to be an old tradition in Appalachia to keep the suitor's hands busy because,
Mm-hmm.
he would come over and visit, and morality was much, much, much different, and there was no hanky-panky on the front porch ever. And to keep his hands busy and his mind occupied, he would whittle different trinkets and toys to give
Uh-huh.
to her as offerings.
Oh, wow.
And so, if a fellow really liked you, he might carve you a little boat with hearts in it.
Oh,
That's
wow.
that's one of the easier things to carve. So maybe it didn't take him very long. But if you're impressed and you like the idea that he's clever with his hands, ladies, oh, think about that, right?
Courting magic.
Yes, courting magic and industrious. So, you know, you want your suitor to give you a more complicated carving. Some of the most complicated carvings were chains. And I was taught how to carve a chain. It takes a long time, but you use only the techniques I've already shown you.
Wow.
And with that, you can carve an actual wooden chain.
Wow.
And the wooden chains that were presented, that's when you knew you were getting ready to be proposed to. If someone presents you with a hand-carved wooden chain, it's like, are you ready to hitch? Are you ready to hook up? And it proves many things to have this piece of carving. It proves that he thinks of her when she's not around, is willing to work hard on her behalf, is clever with his hands, and is diligent and ready to work hard because it's really not easy to do that carving.
Right.
And it's, in a way, when you receive one of these things, it's like a compulsion spell. It's like, oh my God, I know you have spent thousands of hours on this, and I'm getting ready to absolutely break your heart. Oh my God.
Oh,
you
no.
know?
Oh, no.
What do you do? Oh, you've been given this talisman, and now what to do with it?
Oh, my
And there
goodness.
are so many women who will go with it, and they're just like, yeah, oh, well, okay, maybe I wasn't ready, but it's okay because it's such a powerful piece of love magic.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing, Leslie.
Hmm. But this is one of the old ways in which whittling and wood carving was used in Appalachia.
How beautiful. Thank you for that story. I did a spell where, Eli says, I did a spell where I wrote prosperity on a bay leaf with a white marker. The bay leaf burned up, but the word prosperity was still written on it. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that I can use to write on the bay leaf for the whole thing to burn, for the universe to get it? I think you can safely say the universe got it the way you did it.
Yes. I think perhaps you didn't understand the symbol as it was presented to you.
Right. You interpreted things in a different way.
Right.
That, if something like that happened to me, it would be a sign of sure success.
Oh yes, I would be
Of the right.
absolutely elated that the
Right.
spell fired absolutely
The chances
perfectly.
of something like that happen are not all that good.
So small. It is such a minor miraculous thing to have happened that to think that the spell didn't fire correctly is a little silly on your part.
Right.
You're looking for the miraculous. Remember, this is magic. You're looking for that which is unusual, that which stands out, that which catches you off guard and makes you look twice. I want to make one brief note.
Okay, good.
Because I believe it's Nathaniel was talking about the Luke's note.
Right, exactly.
And there are probably some new people here who aren't familiar with what the Luke's note is.
Right.
Okay. So, I have an example. This is mine. I don't call it a Luke's book. Mine is, of course, my little scientific notebook. And this is the one that I keep in my purse so that when I see signs or when I hear sometimes the voice of God speaking through other people, I make a quick note of it so I won't forget what was said. Or when I see the results of a spell manifesting themselves, I'll take the time to turn to the page and write down my notes. You know, the spell manifested at about 12:35 in this particular way. It wasn't how I was expecting it to manifest. It manifested much better than I expected it, and that's great because that's what I always want. Da, 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 da. And then I take this and I bring it home and I transfer it into one of these 3 permanent volumes.
Wow.
I have one for daily work, yearly work, and one for errata that doesn't seem to fit into daily or yearly work. And with those, I'm able to cross-reference my spells.
Wonderful.
What spells am I good at? What spells do I need to improve at? How quickly do I get my results? I know I get my results in 7 to 10 days. How do I know that? I've been keeping records for the last, I won't tell you how many years.
Lots of them.
Lots of them.
Did we mention that magic keeps you young?
Oh,
and healthy?
Yes. There are lots of good spells to maintain youth and beauty.
The Illuminati have cast a powerful spell on the peoples of the earth, and while many still sleepwalk like zombies in a trance, they have prepared everything nearly to enslave humanity under a new world empire.
Of our hearts, the power of our magic, and the strength of our numbers, we still can break the spell put on our people.
We're just a ragtag bunch of magicians armed only with the power of our prayer and the power of our faith and the power of our magic. But whether you be Christian, Jew, Wiccan, pagan, magician, shamanic practitioner, or any other stripe of spiritual warrior of humanity against this evil falls to us.
So we, who now, to stand with us against the rising darkness, because you're our only hope.
Have you ever wanted to gain real magical abilities so you can become the master of your destiny?
Do you wish you could get the ancient secret key for free so you can build the life of your dreams?
If you've wanted more out of life, to become all that you can be, physically, romantically, financially, spiritually, then you need to take action and get this right now.
That's right, and for free, but it won't be available for much longer.
So go right now to thescienceofmiracles.com and get started. Achieve the prosperous life you want for yourself. Gain ultimate life mastery.
Are you familiar with the Rosem Cruiser with what's his name? He's popular in the States. He's the president or the
Emperor.
Imperator.
The president.
Emperor.
Imperator.
From the Golden Dawn. What's his name?
Oh.
David Griffin holds this position as Emperor.
Imperator.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
Have David Griffin.
I saw an email yesterday that he sent out about, there's a magical war going on.
The Mage War.
Demons of the infernal realm. All of them.
There is really a magical war going on.
The Mage War.
There is a guy called David Griffin who is heading all these magicians.
David Griffin is S.L. McGregor Mather's present successor.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
I'm Golden Dawn Imperator David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
Now David Griffin.
There's a magical war going on.
So there is really a magical war going on.
Spellwork mastery.
Alpha.
Omega.